So the philosophy of ICSB, that's really hard to narrow down. But if I had to nail down our philosophy into a few words, I would try to do this by saying that it's about going the extra mile. You know, when you work with a variety of students, I've come to realize over the years that everyone needs a different kind of push, you know. This often requires me to try to figure out what motivates the dancer to dance, essentially. And knowing this helps tremendously to know how to help someone. You know, I think it's almost an art form trying to figure out, you know, the why for why they dance. And I know that this is something that we usually talk to students a lot, you know. I think sometimes, part of our job is not just, teaching classes and coaching, but it's also sometimes kind of being an ear to listen to and also to someone to talk to and to give some context to what they're feeling, how they're experiencing, the struggles that they're going through as they're working through such a difficult, a field like classical dance. And so for this reason, I would say it's important to just have balance in your training that way.
Mm-hmm. So this year we chose quite a variety of repertoire for the students. Actually quite a challenging variety of repertoire. That's not just challenging technically, but artistically and also on a physical level, because it requires a lot of stamina, the pieces that they're performing. Mm-hmm. And especially for our younger level, our level C, it's been interesting because where they started last year and where they are this year.
Yeah, only 1 year ago.
1 year ago is a very different, level. So we were actually able to really challenge them and the pieces that we picked out for them. One of them specifically being extremely musical and requiring a lot of energy because, we're using tambourines and, it's from the classical rep. So we tried to stay true to the classical rep as much as we could. But at the same time, trying to still make them look their best. For the older students, I would say it's been challenging because it's ultimately in some of the pieces 2 different levels put together. So we've had to make sure that although one level has their strengths as a class and one level has their other strengths as a class or weaknesses, we've had to put them together and make them look really good as one group of dancers. And not just, again, on a technical level, but also artistically, formation-wise, just creating a ballet and not just like a piece of a ballet where you're just going to do the steps and that's it.
So when you watch the ballet Pas de Quatre, it may not come across right away what it's about. It is technically a storyless ballet. However, it was created almost 200 years ago on the 4 major ballerinas at that time. And so what's interesting, and you'll notice once you know that, is that each one feels that she is the star. And an interesting fact, actually, is for them to decide the order of appearance, because each one felt like they were the most important, of course, they went by age. So the youngest appears first and the oldest appears last. That way, none of them are officially the star. So in order to be able to educate the dancers about the ballerinas that the ballet was originally designed for, I obviously, of course, send them in directions where they can research and learn about the different ones, but I also try to put them in the place of that time and what was important at that time. So yes, their historical value, but also what was it like to literally be them at that time? And this kind of ties back to the other question, because I know that you keep using the word imagine, but it's almost that we don't even have them imagining, we have them believing that they really are these people.
It's different.
So I described to them what is the difference then as to compare it to now. And this gives them an appreciation of the growth of the art form as well, because I say to them, you know, nowadays in classical ballet and contemporary ballet, it's all about the picture that you're going to make, you know? But think about back then, 200 years ago. They didn't have the technology that we do now. They didn't have cameras that we have now. So then the technology that was new was point shoes.
Right.
And being able to lift up onto point was new at that time. So what was important to those ballerinas at that time was actually literally looking weightless. You know, so I give them things like that to think about, that time period, literally what was important. The reason why that you're looking this way or that way, that's where your suitors are. The reason why your jewelry is different, those are the jewels that you received. So it's more than just going and looking online to read about the historical value of the dancers. It's more than that. It's an appreciation of that whole time period and who they literally were as compared to now, so they can have that appreciation. So actually the way that we structure our programs when we are teaching really works well with the elements that we need for pas de quatre, because each ballerina in pas de quatre had what she did best, but each of those 4 things are the major components in excellent classical technique. And without excellent classical technique, it would be nearly impossible to do the ballet. So there's the elements of footwork with the small jumps. There is upper body, there's turning, and there's adagio. So all 4 of those, each ballerina having her own, are equally important. And in our curriculum, they're equally important as well. And to pick up the style of pas de quatre, you really have to be extremely detail-oriented, which we are with our program. So oriented that we even spend hours literally on moving toes individually. And to be able to do the romantic style in the proper way in which it was intended, you have to be able to have details so specific as that they come to shoulders and elbows and wrists and hands and fingers, every little itty bitty bit of it.
Yeah, it was a very specific aesthetic at that time, I'm sure, like with the leaning forward and the softer arms and the carriage and everything. It makes such a big difference though.
Well, my parents have always been really supportive of my dance journey, and immediately after my first week where I auditioned at ICSB, they saw how much I grew in only a week, which is such a short amount of time for ballet to improve, and they think they knew right away that this would be the right place for me, even though, it's a sacrifice moving away from home.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we both did the same program. We auditioned through the 2-week Stay in Shape intensive, but she came in 2018 and I came in 2019. And I was like, Mom, I got so much better in 2 weeks. I have to come here year round. So basically, my parents are aware that this is my dream, like to be a professional dancer. And I'm very fortunate, we're both very fortunate to have like some of the most supportive parents in the world. And so, we kind of convinced them through a lot of wearing them down and they love us, so they agreed to let us come.
Well, both our parents were pretty convinced that if we were going to move away from home and do online school, it was really important that we kept up our academics and did a really good program, and both of us actually attend the same online school. And I think it's mostly through showing them that we have good time management, that we're responsible with emailing our teachers when we're going to have something late if we have a lot of rehearsals one week. And just staying on top of our grades and everything really helped convince them that this would be okay for us to not be in a traditional schooling environment.
Yeah, our school is pretty lenient with extensions, and the teachers are very understanding as far as, oh my God, I have a rehearsal. I really need to get this due a week later. So, it's really the aspect of trying to let them know, be communicative with both our parents, our teachers, and each other, because we definitely help each other out with certain subjects that we both happen to be in. So I think communication is definitely key, and once I kind of demonstrated to my parents that I could do that more frequently, they're like, okay, maybe you can do online school, maybe this is the right move for you. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's definitely been helpful that both of us go to the same school, so we can, I think that also helped convince our parents so that they knew we'd keep each other accountable for whatever we might be late in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, ICSB is it's a school like no other, in the sense that you're really not gonna get this training at literally any other school in the country, maybe even the world. And so I think that when I came here for those 2 weeks and I saw that I had improved so much, I knew that I had to come here year round, because I knew that I wasn't going to improve as much at any other school I went to. And so moving away was just a necessary sacrifice in that, in that dream.
Right. Like when you decide that you want to be a professional dancer, almost every dancer knows that there's going to be sacrifices that come with that. And the most important thing when pursuing a career in ballet is making sure that you find a place where you're going to get the best possible training and really reach your potential as a student before you enter a professional environment. And I think we both knew that ICSB was definitely going to be the place where we could achieve that before we move on to the next step. And that's the most important thing when wanting to become a professional dancer.
Yeah, and when you're younger, like the things you sacrifice are more like the sleepovers and the birthday parties. And so this seemed like it was something that it was a huge sacrifice to leave our friends, our family, our teachers, our regular school, a lot of senses of normalcy. But, you know, it's something that we kind of been doing forever. Like we didn't hang out with people a ton already. We didn't get to go to everything, every football game, every regular high school thing. So we were just like, you know, we've got to go all in here. This is the place to do it.
We already knew we weren't going to have a normal life. So
yeah, but who wants to be normal, right?
Yeah. I think warm up in the morning, or we have 1 or 2 academic classes online through Zoom, our online school. And then we have privates in the morning some days, and then the rest of the ballet schedule depends on the day. Sometimes it's like 4 hours, sometimes 3 or 2. And then rehearsals in the evenings, and then maybe another online class once we finish. And
that's a pretty usual day.
Yeah.
With rehearsals like peppered in. I mean, it's flexible. It changes depending on whatever's going on. And as far as school goes, our teachers are pretty lenient as to how we attend class. Sometimes some of our courses are asynchronous. Most of them aren't. So we do need to be in the Zoom meeting if we want to get the proper attention. And we're both taking like AP classes and stuff. So we're trying to challenge ourselves academically too, which is balancing it with the rehearsal schedule is difficult. But you know what we do is like we'll watch the Zoom recording later if we need to switch up our schedule. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like wake up, warm up, coaching, rehearsal or class, or you know that switched around. It really depends on the day. Depends on the season too. What we're doing at the moment.
So after completing the summer intensive at ICSB, I honestly felt like right off the bat, I like noticed a difference in between ICSB and other schools. It was something I wasn't used to, and I think that's what I really liked at first. And honestly, being there for 8 summers is where I felt my best technically, and that's what I really liked. And also just the environment I was in, it was like it was really motivating to work hard. And the summer intensive in itself was so intense, but yet I had fun doing it too, and everything about it just really contributed to me, wanting to stay here. And it was an amazing 8 weeks that I learned a lot, and I feel like all of that just really had to do with me wanting to study here, and yeah. Upon arrival, I felt really welcomed. Everybody was super, super sweet, and I always felt really welcomed, and it was, obviously it's a little hard at first because coming into a new school, you don't know what to expect. Everybody has maybe known each other for longer, but everybody was really welcome, and it was really nice to get to know everybody. I feel like the process of preparing gives ICSB and me an advantage because it's not only preparing me for the real world or the career of ballet, but I also feel like it helps all of us to sort of understand what it's like, in a professional career. And not only that, but it also gives ICSB the advantage because you get to see the result of all of us working so hard, and it's really nice to see everything come together at the end, and you see how much work we put into everything, it's really nice. So with the other students, I feel like my relationship has grown a lot. I mean, we spend so much time with each other. And so I feel like, because we're spending so much time together, we've really gotten to know each other. And although we're all working hard as a team, there's also that fun side of it. And I've gotten to know everybody really well. And, obviously at first it's, a little awkward because you don't know everybody. But by the end, we all just got to really know each other. And everybody was, like I said, super welcoming. So that was really nice.
So usually how we instruct the students in how to, tell a story on stage, I feel requires the artist to try to feel the character in their shoes, so to speak. So we spend a lot of time working with them on finding out the why. I think that's probably one of the most important elements. And what I mean is that, for example, why is she gesturing? Who is she speaking to? What is she trying to say? Where is she at this point? What part of the story is she, in, and what is she experiencing? Or how to make things less predictable, like, instead of just like running to the corner, well, what is drawing you there? What gave you the decision to run to that corner? And just those kind of details and narrowing them down seems to really help them to understand their character better. And sometimes we'll do things like a character, development session where we talk about, okay, what's her name? The things that she likes, what's the name of her mother? Like any of those details really help to make the character really concrete and believable to the audience.
Right. And we will tell them to imagine yourself, not just on stage performing the variation or performing the excerpt from the ballet, but imagine yourself on stage in the full length ballet with the sets, with everybody else standing there. Because, to do ballet, even when you do have all the sets and all the costumes, you do have to have an imagination. So learning to imagine themselves in that place and really putting themselves there and committing to it also helps them to develop character roles. Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, another important thing that we usually have the students do is that, I feel like students nowadays are very obsessed on the variations themselves, and they look at other kids doing variations, but they never take the time to watch the full-length ballet. And they're chock full of them on YouTube. But of course they're like 2 to 3 hours long, and a lot of people just don't have the patience to sit down and watch and really immerse themselves into the full work.
Coming here to ICSB has definitely changed my view on my dance aspirations way further than I thought was possible in my life. I remember as a young dancer when I went to my old studio, ever since I've been like 2 years old, since I enrolled in my first ballet class, I was told that being a dancer would just be like 2% of our class would become a dancer. I always had huge dreams when I was younger, and I just had this giant aspiration to become a principal at this company and also be a famous actor, and just I had this perfect life. But I think the thing with being a dreamer is that I began to distinguish a difference in my two lives, because I had a fantasy life and then I had my reality life. And I never ever imagined that I'd actually be able to become a professional ballerina until I came here. And I was surrounded by people who had these dreams and they were going for it, and success was coming to them. And to me, that was just a foreign concept. And being able to come here and have these dreams come true is just amazing. It's one of the best feelings in the world. Well, the change in style of teaching has definitely affected my ballet ability in a variety of ways. Specifically, I believe that it has changed me artistically as a person, because I remember when I was at my older studio, I would get corrections all the time to just smile on stage and enjoy myself. And I remember thinking to myself, that is impossible. I don't know how I'm supposed to enjoy myself if I'm freaking out backstage and I'm a nervous wreck. And coming here to ICSB has definitely changed my outlook. I think it has changed me into a better and more positive person. And coming here has just made me find my love for ballet again. And I think it's pretty obvious, you can see on stage, that I really enjoy what I'm doing. I remember my very first dance competition, and I remember coming off stage and feeling a little upset because I fell out of my turns and stuff. And then I remember coming up the stairs to go to the main lobby area, and there was this giant group of people waiting for me. And it was my teachers, parents, my fellow classmates, and they just welcomed me in with this giant bear hug, and it just made me feel so at home. And I've never felt more like I belonged than I felt then. And it just encouraged me to be so much kinder and a better person to others, and it's just affected me very greatly as a person. Well, being around people who are oftentimes very much better than me, I feel like oftentimes when you see people that are so much better than you every day, you kind of get used to them. But here at ICSB, I've never ever gotten used to their talent. They continue to amaze me and inspire me every single day. And I actually remember my very first class here at ICSB. I was dancing with so many talented dancers, and I went home and I cried every single day because I was just so upset. I felt like I was never going to be as good as them. But they just continued to support me and give me corrections, and they welcomed me into their family so easily. I just couldn't wish for a better family.
شابي النفس قومي حجبوا ويحهم كم يدعون الفطن يعبدون الله خوفا من لظن فلظن عبدوا لا ربنا
I think we can all agree that the older girls play a huge role and inspire us every day to become better young dancers.
Yeah, sometimes we get to go and watch their classes or their rehearsals, and it's really inspiring and kind of reassuring to see that your hard work can pay off.
Definitely. So like when we go into their student rehearsals and we see them do their rehearsals and classwork, it really sets a tone for how we can use that and do our student rehearsals at the end of the day.
Some of the traits I'd like to incorporate into my training that the older girls have are their commitment, their dedication, and their persistence.
I agree. We can always use their experience and try to incorporate it into our dances during classwork and rehearsals. Some more traits that I probably want to take in for my daily work is probably focused and seriousness, because when they're working, you have to always be ready and on top of everything, so that's really what every dancer needs to go for. I do think both older kids and younger kids are on the same team, because when we're working, especially in rehearsals together, it really shows that we can put in the same amount of effort into making the piece look beautiful at the end.
Yeah, I agree with what she's saying. When we work on an ensemble together, they really try to include us. Even though we're in different classes, we all come together and work as a team.
I definitely agree that just because we're on different levels doesn't mean that we're not all trying to put in the same amount of work and trying to be passionate about the same thing so that it can look beautiful in the end.
I could definitely see myself in the same place as them in a few years, because I know if I continue to work hard and stay motivated, I can achieve my goals.
In a few years, I definitely think I'm going to be able to get there because all the older girls had to put in so much effort to where they are now, that I know if I put in my 100% every day, I'll definitely get there. I think International City School of Ballet has definitely set us on the right track, so if we continue to be passionate about what we love, eventually we'll get to where they are.
I definitely do think that the older girls are approachable, and when we're in rehearsals together, they always try to find our input and ask us what we think about something so that we feel included.
I definitely agree with that. So when we're in rehearsals, student rehearsals, even in like watching them in class, they definitely try to make sure we are included, give them corrections, even though they're like older than us. I think that they're constantly trying to motivate us, the younger kids, and also motivate their peers so that we can constantly keep putting in our best work every day.
So the story of Symphony Blanc is based on the choreography that embodies the qualities of a Degas painting. So a lot of the movements appear to be kind of fleeting in sort of an impressionistic aesthetic that was very common and typical in the artist's era. One of the things that I love most about this dance is that it really captures the essence of this year's group. In my mind, when I watch this piece, every time I watch it, I can see so clearly the work that we've been doing in art classes. The Ballet Blanc style is in many ways about the connection to the music, to the actual choreography as one of our major highlights. And this is something that we work on a lot in our technique classes, is musicality, phrasing, and not just counting. Regarding the actual story, it's really the story about a young ballerina and their journey through studying at a school such as ours. So this is something that a lot of our students can instantly relate to pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But of course, because we're basing it on Degas, I thought, okay, well then, what is the obvious choice? It would be on the Paris Opera Ballet School. So that was kind of the idea, is that we focused on the characters in the painting as if the painting was coming to life. So if you look at the beginning of the piece, it starts with dancers kind of placed on the stage, kind of in very relaxed positions, similar to what you would find in typical Degas painting. And that as the music slowly starts to build, they slowly come to life one by one as the energy kind of passes around the stage. And then eventually they're just full-blown dancing. And so I think just the progression, how they were able to take that in and tell that story individually was amazing. But, I kind of came up with the original theme for the story, but what we do here at ICSB is we usually give the students a little bit of ownership, in the sense that we allow them to really have an input in the story. So I remember we had multiple sessions where we would have circle time, where we'd actually discuss, so what is this story about? What happens to this character? Initially the choreography is already set. And then they try to look at how it's designed, and then try to come forth with the story behind what they see on the movements of the dancers on stage. So that's kind of been an interesting process, and some of them are new students who have not been familiar to how we work here, but they were able to really just go right in and become a full contributing part of the group, and so that's really added to the value of the piece. Well, so, that's the other thing. The other challenge was, I wanted to make sure that when we did do this choreography, it had inspiration from what you would consider is, what I would think is the repertoire for, a company such as Paris Opera Ballet. And so I kind of looked at a variety of different things. I researched, various staples of their repertoire, even some ballets that were originated at the company, many, many hundreds of years ago. And I incorporated that as part of the choreography. But to do justice to the actual style, I really wanted to invite someone who was very knowledgeable about, that French sort of style and technique. And so actually, this is something that we tend to usually do at the school, is we try to bring in people to work with our students for certain things that, are way beyond my knowledge base. And so Ms. Catherine here, she is, was really able to come in and work with the students and help them understand the specific nuances, the musicality and the coordination that's involved in understanding the kind of French style. So it was a really nice, wonderful experience for the dancers to be able to work with you. I remember it was during the middle of the year before we started doing the rehearsals for the piece.
Yeah, I was delighted to hear that they were creating a piece for the school in sort of a French style, in homage to like Degas paintings and whatnot, especially the aesthetic of the costumes. Very reminiscent of like Bournonville's Conservatory or something like that, which is delightful for the audience. It's a lovely era. And yeah, it was really nice to come in and see the dancers. They all have beautiful technique, and to be able to give them a taste of sort of more maybe French technique than they'd had in the past. Just the type of steps and the footwork and the speed, and which your piece has a sort of variety of different styles in it, a blend of the French and the Vaganova and whatnot to represent their full technique abilities and the styles they're used to. But just learning just pure, French exercises was, I think was a challenge for them. It was very, very useful, I think, to the piece.
And the choreography is stylistically various, and it's kind of a medley, and you might be able to pick up some things off of what you see in this performance. But I remember it was kind of a 2-day workshop working with the students, and at first I remember I usually ask them, so how was it? What was it like? And they were like, wow, it was really challenging. Like, it's very different and hard in a very unusual way. And I'm like, well, that's kind of part of the process, is learning how to adapt to various different styles, which is kind of like the main purpose of why we put together the Spring Gala, is because it allows the student a chance to kind of, be a chameleon and learn how to learn different styles and to be able to execute them in such a very refined way. So this is kind of we're always constantly finding ways to challenge the students here.
Well, I think for this gala, for the audience to see a piece that's, based on the aesthetic of a Degas painting and has incorporated French technique in it, I think it's really lovely. It's not something you see a lot. And I think it sort of lends to the diversity of technical training that they want to expose the kids to the school here. Would you say that? True, Masashi?
I would say that, a lot of our classes, follow a specific curriculum, but we also understand that there are various different body types. So it is, in essence, Vaganova based. But at the same time, we do understand that in today's day and age, the repertoire has expanded tremendously based on what would have been common, 50 years ago even. So with that said, we just felt that it was important to really expose them to as much different schools of thought as possible. And this was, for this year, I felt one of the best ways to do that.
Well, I wasn't even aware that they were doing Symphony Blanc when I first started talking about directing the preparatory program with them. It just sort of magically worked out that this piece was being created. So it was nice to be able to come in and give a very small workshop for the kids to expose them more to just pure French technique, which is not the entirety of their choreography, but gave them a sense of what it would be like if they were doing strictly a piece that was based on French techniques. So my particular influence from the French school is just based on lots of years of pedagogy, both as a dancer and a teacher. Fabulous inspiration from teachers like Alexandre Calvini, Janine Guiton, Karine Averti. There's some big influences on me from the French school and my training. So I've tried to just parlay all my knowledge to the kids and what I know about the system. Just spent so many wonderful years, both getting to go to Paris and different parts of France to study the technique, exam curriculum, and just the years and years of passed down information, because it's not a codified or written technique. It's the type that is passed down through years of knowledge from teachers. So again, the style is very specific, and so I think for the kids to try to learn and be absorbing that in 2 days was definitely a challenge for them. But they did very well. It's very quick.
I'm so glad.
It's very quick, especially the footwork. And it's different transitions and coordination and transfer of body weight that they sometimes aren't used to. So I think they did very well. And I'm sure they were able to apply it nicely to the piece as well. Well, for the preparatory program itself, we're planning on incorporating elements of both the Vaganova and the French technique into the curriculum. We feel that that gives a really nice balance, and that's what my background knowledge is, and so that's what I'd like to bring to the program. I think it helps build a really solid foundation to then for the students to move into Ballet Institute when they're older, which then they would be under the direction of the directors Masashi and Journet. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what children come into the program that apply for it. It'll be a full spectrum program with both technique and conditioning and character and repertoire and point. So laying the foundation in those areas will be, I think, a very valuable thing to bring to the school and to build up the foundation for them to be able to go into Ballet Institute.
Extremely. I mean, foundation is key for everything that we do. And it's also the most time-consuming element too, but it's also a necessary element.
It is. And those foundational years are really pivotal in developing the leg line, the turnout, and also the mental fortitude that you need for ballet. The expectations now are so much higher than they were for entry-level dancers going into companies in prior decades. So preparing kids now, you starting at that age, how you lay that foundation is extremely important for when they're going to be ready to enter a company.
Absolutely. And at ICSB, it's, understanding what the expectations are really help to push the students to reach their full potential. And that's definitely what we're all about.
Yeah, I'm very excited to launch the preparatory program this summer with the summer intensive, and then also move into the fall programming. And with my assistant director, Cara Hill-Protos, we're both very excited to be part of the team.
So when we prepare students for a competition, and in terms of making the dancer feel confident, I just don't think there's really any kind of secret. We just really try to make sure that we focus on doing everything that we can for the dancers. And every detail was covered, and that they've been able to apply those details to their variations in a consistent manner. And it usually gives them the confidence to know that they can perform and show their best on stage.
Yeah, I would agree. One of the biggest things for us is making sure that the dancers are very consistent in their rehearsals. Consistency usually brings forth the true performance on stage, as well gives all of the students the confidence and the sense of they're going on stage and they're doing their best and that they were fully prepared to participate in the competition.
Yeah, because, these students, they, spend a lot of hours, coaching these variations. And, every day is a different thing. It depends on what's going on with their day. But really the biggest thing is making sure that they come into the next rehearsal and that they've actually taken in the corrections that they were given the day before and that they were able to move forward. So it's kind of, it's important to have a smooth process.
I also think one more element that is important is that we're all very honest with the students.
Yeah.
Yes.
And because of that honesty, they trust us.
Yes.
And that gives them a lot of confidence and helps them feel comfortable.
My experience with ICSB competing is it's very fun. I always feel really prepared. They spend a lot of time with us working individually. We have a lot of private sessions with them, and we just always really feel not stressed at competitions. We always feel like we're just fully prepared and excited.
Right, and also with our ensemble pieces, they give us a lot of time to work together alone on our pieces. So it gives us a chance to bond with one another and really build a family. So everyone feels really supported and prepared when we go on stage. Probably our teacher's ability to help us not only technically but artistically. We talk a lot about the story when we're competing, and I feel like that brings us to another level that maybe some studios focus more on technique while we're trying to focus more on the big picture, which is really becoming an artist, and that's what ICSB really prepares us to do. Yeah, and also while we're competing, instead of thinking about like, oh, I'm so nervous I'm gonna mess up, because we have that artistic side, we really think about playing a character instead. We used Zoom a lot to work on our group pieces. It was kind of weird at first because we couldn't, see each other that well and work on things. But we utilized that time to watch videos of our rehearsals and really try to correct one another. And so that was very beneficial to us.
And I consider the girls at our studio to be very much visual learners, so it really helps to watch yourself and really fix what you need to do without the teachers always having to tell you. It really makes you feel more confident. Maybe you've already learned that variation, so you can really not focus as much on the choreography, but more on the artistry side of it. And it makes you feel more confident in your technique because you've already been corrected and you've already worked on it a lot.
Yeah, and also, even if you don't know the variation you're learning, you still have experience with learning choreography very quickly, so it makes you feel way more confident.
Really, just even these days with COVID, just the opportunity to perform and be on stage. I feel like all of the girls, we just feel at home on stage. So being able to perform and being in front of an audience and very prestigious people is always very exciting.
Yeah, and we always feel like there's a certain energy on the stage whenever we're performing. So we love making that eye contact with one another and just feeling that really important moment on stage.
So every work that I create is always inspired by my students. You know, we concentrate so much on technique on a daily basis that we sometimes put expressing and storytelling on the back burner. I also wanted to approach a piece of music that has always fascinated me. Normally, before I approach a work, I always try to do my research and look into the music score to search for inspiration for the design and the construction of the choreography. But largely, the brunt of the work lies not just on the steps, but also how the dancer dances the steps. You know, often this requires a lot of coaching, in a sense, to bring out something really deep and personal in every dancer that I work with. Now, with Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet, it's kind of a musical anomaly that has always fascinated me since I myself was a dance student. I was reserving this particular piece of music for a really special occasion, and it felt that now was the right time. For me, this year is a special year because I feel as though I now have a student body that embodies a specific kind of energy that I felt will allow me to be more courageous enough to try something bold and different. I feel that with this group, I can truly push them artistically beyond their limits, both physically and intellectually, and bring them into a place that tests their comfort zone with the goal of achieving something truly singular. I've always believed that live performances were meant to be something that is one of a kind, something that only the audience, you know, in that moment at that theater can really own, especially when the work speaks to you in a way that is truly unforgettable. So the message of this work is specific. This work is focused on the psyche of this extraordinary character, Juliet. Of the two title characters, she's the true focal point in which the whole story and its characters revolve upon. Being that she is center, she's an embodiment of various sentiments that I felt were universal enough for anyone to relate to. This is a story about a young person who, until one key moment, whether it was fate or coincidence, an event that turned her life upside down and placed her on a racing train that only continues to speed up with no signs of slowing down. At a certain point, it was inevitable that it would crash. Life only comes down to a few moments, and this ballet is centered upon the moment where she has to make the first difficult decision in her life, which is especially hard for her because she existed in a world and culture where all key decisions were made for her, whether she liked it or not. Juliet lived in a world where arranged marriages functioned as political maneuvers and served as peace treaties and mergers of important Venetian families, families that wielded great influence and power. This clearly affected this person in a way that made her ask some important questions. Questions that we all have asked ourselves at one point. What do you want? And what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get what you want? For everyone, that answer is completely different. The ballet, and definitely the play, has no shortage of universal themes, and they ask big questions in how we perceive our role in society. For Juliet, life was simple. Be an obedient and charming girl. Respect and honor your family and name. Stay on a straight path through prayer and daily worship, until one day one person disrupts everything and creates a beautiful kind of chaos that begins in an obsession and consumes her whole life. Juliet is young, impulsive, brave, and with the help of Romeo, makes her first selfish decision to sacrifice everything she knew to make room for her new dream. It's also about light and darkness. For me, this concept inspired me to design the choreography around the Japanese dance form of Buto, or Ankoku Buto, which is the official name of the genre. The name means in English, dance of utter darkness, and originated in Japan in the late 1950s. So Buto was born out of the chaos resulting in the loss of identity during World War II that propelled many artists to re-examine their own culture. Buto is an attempt to uncover the dance that already exists, that it must emerge from within and not be forced from externally. Buto uses reduction in a really effective way. For example, stillness and slow motion that you'll see in the piece are well known to audiences of Buto dance. done well, the highly charged stillness can heighten the awareness of the dancer and their audience to the detail of the movement. This slowness explores time frames beyond the everyday normal pace of life. It's, we talk about this a lot, as teachers about getting out of your comfort zone and what it really means to be an artist. And, to my surprise, when I first began working with the dancers, and I started teaching them the steps of the Buto style, I found that they were incredibly receptive to the process. Although it was something that they've never done before, they really dived into it head first without any hesitation. At this age, looking weird is a big deal, but, and this kind of choreography is very out there. But they just went right into it, and I found that really inspiring. I believe that this experience has allowed them to see dancing from a very different vantage point from what is normally expected of them. And I've asked them to do some things that are really unusual and strange. I push them to bring themselves to a state that's almost like being in a trance if you watch the performance, or kind of a hyper-presence that makes them especially aware of everything going on around them and within their own bodies. The silent screams of agony, the sensation of the dagger as they plunge it into their bodies in the dance, and the moment when they seem to collapse onto the floor were achieved from finding the state to create the right effect of the movement that's non-artificial. So hopefully this process has helped to unlock something in themselves as young artists. I think ultimately it's the process that I find the most rewarding at the end of the day. And, working with the students and watching them grow and watching them experience something about themselves and take something away from the work is, I think, probably where the rewards are for me. you.